So, Stranger Things has finally ended, and we got word from the writers.
Where are the Demogorgons, the Demodogs, the Bats? Are they hiding? Matt Duffer. Mainly it's just that Vecna was not expecting this sneak attack on his home turf. Never in a million years could he even imagine that. They're somewhere. We obviously discussed having a demo battle on top of the Mind Flayer battle, but it felt more right to us that why does he need the demos when the Mind Flayer is this giant thing and can attack them? He doesn't need his little ant army to attack. He's going to take care of this himself.
Surely not this again. Not another great series that ends with so many loose ends. But seriously, having watched the series finale, you'd be surprised to learn that it's not the loose ends that got to me. No, it was something far more deeper than that. It is the fact that they played it safe. Playing it safe is a narrative in storytelling that has long existed to appeal to the massive general audience. When you play it safe, you're choosing predictable, low-risk narrative decisions that are unlikely to cause outrage from the audience. But in doing so, neither are you going to deeply challenge or surprise them. And this is where they missed the trick with the final season. You see, unlike other formats of storytelling, a series is different. It has so much freedom to tell a story to its completion without needing to alter pacing or compromising immersion. And to be completely honest, Stranger Things was one of those series that had the foundation as well. It started off like a house on fire. It had everything going on for it. The story, the vibes, the acting, nostalgia, and most importantly, emotion. Heck, I remember watching it like it was this revelation. I had seen nothing like it ever before. But it didn't stop with the first season. It kept going. The stories that were unfolding, the relationships that were forming, the stakes that they were gradually constructing, albeit having weak points within certain seasons, you knew what was going on here. You had faith in the final project. And it was obvious that they were taking creative risks and pushing the boundaries of the story. And that's what culminated in season 4. It was arguably one of the best seasons of Stranger Things, given how it tackles multiple storylines at the same time, being grounded and fantastical when it needs to be. If season 1 was the best for what it introduced, season 4 was the one when the shackles came off. The scope, the scale, the sheer emotions of the storylines, that's what made it so special. They didn't hold anything back. They didn't play it safe. But that's why it felt so underwhelming watching season 5, because all that was built from the very beginning doesn't get the justice it deserved. The story never quite gets going, and you can tell something's off because of how far away the story begins from what was expected. Remember the ending of season 4? It was probably the one time in the whole series where the stakes felt like it was at its peak. You remember this shot? This frame right here? A wide landscape of the main characters standing on a hill and slowly consuming the terror of the apocalypse. This should be the so it begins moment of the story. The gates of the Upside Down have opened, and technically this should have unleashed the true monster at the end of this road. The Mind Flayer. The creature that was ominously looming over Hawkins like a shadow from the very beginning of the story. But instead, we get this.
It's looking like a pretty regular day in Hawkins. 55 degrees, low chance of rain, medium chance of arrest.
They take their time to build things up again. They play it safe. We have to once again wait for the end, when the end was already upon us in the previous season. I feel like if they had taken a risk, maybe unleashing the apocalypse on Hawkins from the get-go, which was always something that was gonna happen anyway, the stakes would have automatically been higher. I'm not saying that the Mind Flayer has to show up in the very first frame, but at least make us think that the world is affected by the events of season 4. But the time jump at the beginning means that people have moved on from the life-altering incident, and if the characters don't feel the stakes are high, then how are we supposed to? And again, I'm not complaining about the decision as much as I'm expressing my disappointment at what this actually could have been. Why not throw us straight into the apocalypse? Maybe the Upside Down has slowly taken over Hawkins and it's dark, and the characters are actively searching for Vecna while the gates spew all sorts of monsters into the real world. And that way, we don't lose the momentum that we gathered from the previous season. We keep moving forward. And I do hear the argument of actors getting older and them not looking the same as season 4, but surely you could find a way around that. At least you could complete the events of season 4 to fruition and then do the time jump, all the while ensuring that Hawkins remain in the shadows. But they don't take the risk. They bring even more characters to create other storylines. And it boggles my mind how the showrunners think it's a good idea to bring new important characters while sidelining some of the existing ones to complete the story. It just doesn't sit right with me. And don't even get me started with the emotional risks that they take, because that's where it completely goes against its own logic. Stranger Things is a series that was built on its characters. Although the plot moves the story forward, it's the characters who become the core of the story. Their inner conflicts, their struggles within the society, and them trying to fit into a world which is at the brink of collapse. That is Stranger Things in a nutshell. There is an emotional side to the story that runs along with the plot. And whenever necessary, they would use that emotional string to kill off one of your favorite characters, and it would indeed have an impact. And although some of them are not part of the main cast, I think there was a common understanding that the reason why they weren't doing that yet was probably for that emotional apocalypse in the final season, when some of your beloved characters sacrificed themselves for the greater good of the story. But yeah, there was none of that in the final season. Tell me this, how do I care more about the sacrifice of Eddie Munson, a character that was introduced and killed in the same season, than the sacrifice made by Eleven, supposedly the main character of the whole series? It makes no sense, and I feel like I'm not the only one who thinks that. And I think that's why the final season simply doesn't work, because it's not emotionally honest. Now, there's a reason why you saw me make the comparison between Season 5 and the ending of Dark, ironically another Netflix sci-fi series. Both series are incredibly similar in the way it starts. It's dark and gloomy, and there's horror, and the characters are relatable on both sides. But given the fact that Dark gets more and more intricate with every passing episode, you would think that they might forget about the emotional side of the story. After all, it is a show where you have to be faithful to the logic of the story. But somehow, the ending gets through to you emotionally, on a level that you might not even find in regular drama. The main characters, upon realizing they were never meant to exist in that world, simply fades away into nothingness while holding hands. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and it allows their absence to be the resolution to the story. It refuses to appease the fans, who probably would want their love to carry on. But the showrunners refuse to do that. But in Stranger Things, the emotional stakes are never that high. Almost all the main characters who we thought were dead somehow came back, and all the fans who theorized at least one of them, be it Dustin or Steve trying to save each other, Mike trying to protect Eleven, Will finally overcoming his fear, Jonathan protecting Nancy, or even Robin, who was the happy-go-lucky charm of the group, at least one of them were gonna be the ultimate sacrifice, a grief that can't be undone. But the writers were afraid to go there, and like I said, there is no emotional honesty here. And even with Eleven, they make it seem like that there is a possibility that her sacrifice was a decoy. There was a chance that it was faked. And as much as this twist might be welcoming for some, for the quality of this story, it simply lies to you about the consequences. And even take the final fight for example. When our gang is fighting the Mind Flayer of all things, an eldritch monster, this ancient being from another dimension, what do the showrunners do? They make it a fight without consequences. Forget about the fact that the final boss battle only lasts about 10 minutes. Are we seriously saying, after all the things that we have seen in the series, there are no consequences to a bunch of kids taking on this powerful entity by themselves? I can let you get away with the implausibility of it all. It lacks logic, but I'm willing to suspend my disbelief, even if it sounds incredibly silly. But what I can't overlook is the lack of emotional risk-taking here. What good is a story if there are no dire consequences to facing the looming monster at the end of it? The story's feelings feel unrealistic, irreversible, and almost reshaped by the writers to comfort the audience. At the end of the day, the ending of Stranger Things fall into the typical trope of unnecessary fan service, leading to predictable narratives and no emotional risk-taking. It doesn't carry any weight, and for a show that has always walked the thin line between nostalgic comfort and genuine horror and grief, the final season failed to make hard choices, and when you played that safe, well, that's when you end up with something so easily forgettable.